This week in the business of tech, we'll delve into reports from ConnectWise, Kaseya, and Backbox, all of which provide valuable insights into the challenges MSPs are facing. We'll also discuss a new integration that has raised concerns about the potential pitfalls of AI-powered customer service. Additionally, we'll take a closer look at how investments in IT vigilance paid off in thwarting a recent North Korean cyber attack. And we'll be discussing a range of other topics, including global IT spending projections, the impact of hiring freezes and layoffs on upskilling efforts, and more. Hit those like, subscribe, and the notification button, and help us pay the bills. And here are this week's stories. Let's start the week out with a review of 3 reports that have just been released. ConnectWise released its 2023 MSP Threat Report. It's a detailed look at the past year, but I wanted to pull out the predictions. Here are 5 listed. First, MSPs will remain targets of supply chain and critical infrastructure attacks. Second, zero trust network architecture is critical for MSPs. Third, leveraging threat intelligence research and interorganizational collaboration is essential for MSPs. Fourth, MSPs will continue to solve the IT talent gap with tech stack consolidation and leveraging outside services. And finally, fifth, specialized cybersecurity training will increase across the industry, but ramp up will take time. Kaseya released its 2023 MSP Benchmark Report. They claim automation was the crucial technology, with 90% of participants citing that. But of note, the top 5 services that MSPs intend to offer in 2023 fall under the cybersecurity umbrella, covering identity and access management, security awareness training, and dark web monitoring. 61% are using new services to new and current clients to grow this year, and the average MRR range for 26% of respondents was between $1,000 and $2,500, with 23% then reporting between $2,500 and $5,000. Demographics-wise, 63% of respondents identified themselves as general-purpose MSPs who provide a host of IT services. 19% identified themselves as network and data center focused, and those specific managed security service providers increased year over year to 18% of the respondent base. Backbox has released its 2023 Network Operations and Security Survey. From the report, quote, "The vast majority of network security and operations pros, at 92%, say there are more network updates needed than they can keep up with. And 98% agree that automated network operations will allow their team to focus on more impactful work. In addition, 96% of respondents say that scaling the business is impossible without network automation. Almost half, at 48% of survey respondents, say their company has not implemented or invested deeply in network automation, opening them up to security breaches and other serious issues. Why do we care? So ConnectWise is leaning into security, sell security. Kaseya is leading with automation, sell automation, and Backbox leads with automation and sells network automation. Not judgmental, just saying. I'll note that each tells a small piece of the overall story for providers. Sure, security is a big deal, but it's not the lead deal. Security needs to be baked in, not sold as a SKU. I worry about providers listening too much to the groupthink of surveys and not making the final leap to apply that to customers. I recently spoke with an expert for a bonus episode on this, about linking back to business outcomes. Security itself isn't the outcome. Building a customer's business on a secure foundation such that they hit their business goals is. Using automation to deliver services is not the end goal. It's about making those services deliver on customer needs. This data gives you the first half, not the whole story. The other story of the day I wanted to highlight comes from Rich Freeman's Channelholic newsletter. First, he caught that Atera had added automated scripting via OpenAI's ChatGPT back in February. Halo PSA showed off its new integration in a demo video released last week. Well, here's what Rich caught. Quote, witness what happens at about the 16-minute and 52-second mark on the demo video when the new feature provides an artificial but not so intelligent response to a simulated self-serve ticket filed by a user whose laptop is on fire. Quote, oh no, that sounds like a serious problem. The first thing you should do is immediately turn your laptop off and unplug it from the wall. Do not attempt to use it again until it has been serviced by a qualified technician. If you're able, I would recommend contacting the manufacturer's customer support line or a local repair shop to have your laptop inspected and repaired. Why do we care? The bad implementations begin. Providers are going to need to spend some time reviewing the capabilities of these new features and all the new products and applying the intelligence filter. No, you do not want AI just directly responding to your customers. Your customers do not want to insert AIs into their interactions with their customers. Microsoft has the branding right. Copilot. AI is best used sitting next to the user advising, not as a barrier. Your service's role here is to be the voice of reason, and don't be dismissive of that value. We talked about the 3CX security issue last week, and is my approach, I don't focus on every exploit you need to know, but instead on the security trends that impact how IT services are delivered. To that end, I noted some coverage in Politico. Quote, Pyongyang's attempt to slink into the software delivery pipeline of a widely used enterprise communications firm named 3CX hasn't gotten much attention within the Beltway because private sector security companies largely nipped it in the bud. End quote. Let's look at the timeline. On March 22nd, the problems began to surface as 3CX software triggered alerts in security software that looked suspicious, but the company was slow to respond. Customers began to ignore what they thought was a false positive. Cut to March 29th, when the software began to call home to GitHub and then suspicious web domains controlled by North Korea. That sleep period was designed to throw off defenders. Still, since 3CX software was already under suspicion, security researchers had, within a day, outed the activity, dismantled Pyongyang's command and control infrastructure, and contacted the US government. Why do we care? The key takeaway here is that it's a win. Sure, the response wasn't perfect, but it worked and worked pretty quickly. That's not a reason for less vigilance, but it is encouraging that the investments in vigilance are working. Now the next step around security, making sure this is reported to business leaders. Just like no one calls the network administrator to thank them on the days the network runs, no one calls the security team to thank them for the incident that didn't happen or that they didn't know about. Tie efforts back to business outcomes and make sure you're reporting. QuoteWerks, the leading solution to create professional branded quotes and proposals in just minutes. With over 55 integrations across PSAs, distributors, accounting, and more, QuoteWerks has more integrations than any other quoting solution for VARs and MSPs. And best of all, genuine people. They're there for you. No need to create tickets, instead, people on the other end of a call. Want to try it for free and find out how to start saving time creating quotes? Visit quoteworks.com/MSP Radio. I spotted some research from Forrester related to the previous story, but more useful in the context of several others. Only 20% of respondents said their organization completely aligns cybersecurity priorities and business outcomes. 60% of firms are willing to spend 6% or more of their operating profit to benefit from adopting an outcome-based approach for cybersecurity investments. And 50% of firms struggle to measure cybersecurity value and need help articulating the contribution of security to business outcomes. In a recent Flexera survey, State of the Cloud, 82% said managing cloud spending was their top challenge, edging out security and lack of cloud expertise at 79% and 78%, respectively. I see a trend. SoftwareOne's survey says much the same. 93% of CIOs expecting IT budgets to increase in 2023, and 83% say they are under pressure to make their budgets stretch further than ever before. Go2 released its IT Priorities 2023 report. The company cites consolidation as the solution to enhance productivity and cost savings, noting that 41% of businesses plan to switch vendors to reduce costs. And 83% of respondents consider consolidation of communication, collaboration, and IT management support tools an important initiative of the year. 93% have completed, planned, or in process with these consolidation efforts. And 65% of organizations say they saw an increase in the IT workload in the past year. Insider did some analysis of the big tech layoffs and looked back historically. The researchers noted that while those big tech companies grew, they didn't become more efficient and revenue per employee declined. Why do we care? Let's tell a story here. Organizations often don't have alignment between security and business outcomes. Just as we're getting better about security, business leaders are now slightly more concerned about cutting costs and thinking software will help them. Business leaders cite efficiency, but are just trimming up the bloat they allowed during good times. Doing more with less is the theme. Now, this is cyclical, and I expect the money spigots to turn back on when confidence in the economy matches more of a reality. We've been near a recession for ages that never seems to come, but until that's a bit more buoyant, there will be cost sensitivity here. And how to overcome it? Business outcomes. It's today's theme, and it's larger than security alone. Sharpen your blade on how you link back to a specific result. Italy last week temporarily banned ChatGPT and launched a probe over the artificial intelligence application's suspected breach of privacy rules. There's a meeting scheduled for this evening to discuss the matter. Germany, France, and Ireland are also considering a ban, and the UK has expressed some concerns. And more broadly, let's quote The Verge. Quote, "The 2023 AI Index, compiled by researchers from Stanford University as well as AI companies including Google, Anthropic, and Hugging Face, suggests that the world of AI is entering a new phase of development. Over the past year, a large number of AI tools have gone mainstream, from chatbots like ChatGPT to image-generating software like Midjourney. But decisions about how to deploy this technology and how to balance risk and opportunity lie firmly in the hands of corporate players. The AI Index states that, for many years, academia led the way in developing state-of-the-art AI systems, but industry has now firmly taken over." Why do we care? I hadn't covered the talk of the AI pause from the open letter last week, and if you missed that story, you didn't miss anything. These two threads we care about. The Europeans really do lead on regulation, so keep an eye on the other side of the ocean for guidance. Big tech companies are not going to deploy twice. The service impact of AI moving into corporate hands is the onslaught of product and services that will be rolling out. Assuming the hype plays out, and so far it's promising, there's a coming wave of consulting and implementation opportunities fraught with ethical and legal considerations. That's usually a bonanza. I wanted to pull a pair of conversations in this week's Community Sentiment segment. The first is the community's assessment of the top 10 common tickets coming into a Helpdesk, which are password resets, onboarding employees, offboarding employees, OneDrive not syncing, allow list URLs, installing software, recovering email from backups, creating new SharePoint sites, permissions to SharePoint sites, and backup failures. Second, about experiences selling to startups and whether or not it's worth the time. The consensus is that it's not worth the time, as these customers usually pay lower than market averages, are challenged to keep on track, and often need to gain the experience to implement required changes correctly. However, some people say that it can be profitable if you identify startups that have the potential to grow quickly. Tips for selling to startups include offering a trimmed-down version of your current offerings, focusing on backup and support, and setting a floor price for your services. Now, why do we care? I'll comment on each. First, I wanted to offer the kinds of help desk tickets your peers are discussing to note that they remain heavily infrastructure based. But remember, that's a help desk. That's not an analysis of the project load. The other is the perspective on startups. This sentiment can be applied to most industries. If you don't filter leads effectively, you can find underperforming customers in any sector. But remember my interview with Marcus Olson. He built a whole life sciences startup business by leaning into these lessons. I can't resist this story. Quoting Channel E2E. MSPs get a stadium. Kaseya has won naming rights for the Miami-Dade Arena, home to the Miami Heat, in a $117 million deal. CEO Fred Vocala said, quote, "This deal represents the largest investment a software company focused on supporting MSPs and their end customers has ever made in building the awareness of the industry, which adds credibility for our customers as they sell to their customers. Beyond the awareness that this deal brings to the MSP industry, Kaseya customers will get access to unique experiences as the company hosts special events and other activities at the Kaseya Center in the future. Additionally, Kaseya will work with MSP customers to provide access to their end customers for similar events and activities at the venue." End quote. Why do we care? If you assume Kaseya has 25,000 customers, which might be high, mind you, then each one of them just paid $4,680 for their back-end infrastructures brand to be on a stadium in Miami. That's simplistic math to be sure, as it's proportional to the amount each spent really, but the point is there. Plus, what about those international customers? They want this brand awareness to play for the NBA in Miami? Saying this is for MSPs is frankly bullshit. This is all ego, and that reasoning about customers using it is as razor thin as I could think. I believe in brand marketing. In fact, I sell it. The key to brand marketing is to push brand awareness in a place your customers and potential customers will be so they hear it. This is why local car dealerships sponsor local sports, where local meets local, and more importantly, are broad consumers in a consumer space. Or other examples like sponsoring roundtables at the local chamber. This is not that. And MSPs just paid for it. According to Gartner projections published Thursday, global IT spending will reach $4.6 trillion, growing 5.5% in 2023. The projection marks an increase from the firm's January forecast, which said global IT spending would only grow 2.4% this year. According to John David Lovelock, Distinguished VP Analyst at Gartner, the shift in the growth rate is mainly attributed to currency fluctuations as a weaker US dollar begins to blow tailwinds in IT spending trends. IDC, however, adjusted its worldwide IT spending forecast down on Wednesday, projecting the spend at a more conservative $3.25 trillion in constant currency and a growth rate of 4.4% in 2023. The firm said tech investments reflect the impact of a weakening economy. This from CIO Dive. ADP, meanwhile, says that the private sector added 145,000 jobs last month, with the smallest firms, as those with fewer than 50 employees, accounting for the bulk of hiring. The Labor Department's Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey dives into the guts of what's happening among businesses and their workers. For February, there are signs the labor market is finally cooling, alongside evidence that conditions remain as tight, perhaps even overheated, as ever. The number of job openings employers reported dropped by 632,000 jobs in February, reaching the lowest since May 2021. That's consistent with a story in which employers react to a slowing economy by pulling back on hiring. The same report showed that hiring remained steady and the number of people laid off or discharged from their jobs fell. Meanwhile, voluntary quits rose. Why do we care? Listener John tweeted that my comment this week of "We've been near a recession for ages that never seems to come" summed it all up, and I appreciated the feedback. If it's not a recession, then what is it? Customer side, hiring is slowing, yet there aren't enough people. And per that ADP data, the SMBs are not behaving like the big companies that get the headlines. That's good news and links to continued growth in IT spending. You can pick IDC's 5.5% or Gartner's 4.5% or split the difference and say 5%. 5% growth is good, but not gangbusters. So the conditions are good, but could be better. Gray skies and no rain, but it keeps threatening, but it isn't raining. With the larger market reviewed, let's look at the services market specifically. According to the 2023 edition of Service Performance Insights Annual Professional Services Maturity Benchmark, which analyzes the performance of over 700 professional services businesses, IT consultancies, both independent professional service organizations and embedded services organizations, they're showing that they've held steady in terms of sustaining growth and delivering profits. Almost all key performance indicators associated with service delivery decreased in 2022. These include average employee billable utilization and project margins falling below their 5-year averages, the number of projects delivered on time dipping by 5%, and project overruns increasing by 21%. The report states, services delivery is where profit is made in professional services. PSOs cannot improve margins in 2023. It will be difficult to grow in 2024. One might say, professional services organizations worked harder in 2022, but not necessarily smarter, states the SPI report. The fact that many performance metrics deteriorated, albeit in a minor way, serves as a warning bell to professional services executives. The market continues to evolve, and the focus in 2023 must return to improved project and services delivery. Why do we care? It's that closing statement I wanted to latch onto and connect to the previous story. Conditions aren't poor, but they aren't great, and that reduces the margin of error. Thus, focusing on improved project and service delivery ensures that a mistake isn't costly in a climate where that margin of error is reduced. And that's the critical insight. ScalePad has acquired LifeCycle Insights, adding a vCIO reporting tool, risk assessments, and asset lifecycle management solutions to the product portfolio. This is their third acquisition this year, following Cognition 360 and ControlMap. From the release, their assessment platform, asset and user inventories, and total cost of ownership budgets allow for insightful reporting based on client risks and goals. The Customer Success module allows leaders, vCIOs, CSMs, and account managers to gain insights into customer segmentation, health, and stack alignment. Why do we care? Congratulations to Marty and Alex and their team. Individual entrepreneurs should be congratulated when they have a financial event like this. ScalePad's name is becoming clear. A platform, a pad, to grow businesses and operationalize service delivery. Scale. They're hoovering up players to build out a service delivery platform that lives above the typical ticketing and professional services automation layer. And it lives within the productivity layer, which I so often cite. Now they have to deliver, of course, but it's a smart strategy. I have a collection of job data I need to catch up on. Hiring pauses and layoffs are impeding upskilling initiatives, according to a Monday Pluralsight report. The software companies surveyed 1,216 IT executives and technologists. The report found that hiring freezes have burdened nearly half of tech workers with tasks outside of their job function. 2/3 of tech managers said software, IT, and data layoffs have pushed their teams to take on additional responsibilities, cutting into time that might otherwise be allotted to training. Despite budget constraints, companies haven't cut back on investments in tech training. Nearly 2/3 of tech leaders have been asked to cut costs, yet almost 3/4 still plan to increase spending on tech skill development this year. And from that Go-To survey I mentioned earlier this week, the survey saw almost double the amount of in-office workers compared to when the same question was asked in 2022, 36% now compared to 19% last year. Hybrid work remains the gold standard, with half the respondents splitting their time between home and the office. Year-over-year results show a decrease of 10% in the number of businesses that have official rules on the number of days an employee needs to be in the office, meaning that employees have more flexibility than ever. It's been roughly 3 years since the COVID-19 pandemic upended U.S. workplaces, and about a third, 35% of workers with jobs that can be done remotely, are working from home all of the time, according to a new Pew Research Center survey. This is down from 43% in January 2022 and 55% in October 2020, but up from only 7% before the pandemic. The new survey finds that 41% of those with jobs that can be done remotely are working a hybrid schedule, working from home some days and from the office, workplace, or job site other days. This is up from 35% in January 2022. And when it is likely the most unpleasant use for remote working, Zoom layoffs are gaining traction. This week, McDonald's told corporate employees not to come to the office so that the fast food giant could, quote, communicate key decisions related to roles and staffing decisions, or in plain English, do layoffs remotely. PepsiCo reportedly told workers to stay home while it conducted job cuts in December 2022, and Twitter closed its San Francisco offices to do the same. Why do we care? So, telling it in story forms, companies doing layoffs and hiring freezes need to compensate for the impact of the training initiatives, because keeping your existing staff is critical. We're settling into a happy medium of remote and hybrid work, as it was never going to be all or nothing. And smaller companies should lean into their ability to be personal and generous, because a Zoom layoff sounds awful among a collection of awful alternatives. Bloomberg has announced Bloomberg GPT, a new large-scale generative artificial intelligence model. This large language model has been specifically trained on a wide range of financial data to support a diverse set of natural language processing tasks within the financial industry. The company says it was trained on a corpus of over 700 billion tokens or word fragments. For context, GPT-3, released in 2020, was trained on about 500 billion. Of the 700 million plus tokens, 363 billion are taken from Bloomberg's financial data. This is the sort of information that powers its terminals, and it's the largest domain-specific dataset yet constructed, according to the company. Another 345 billion tokens come from general-purpose datasets obtained elsewhere. The company's specific data, named FinPile, consists of a range of English financial documents, including news, filings, press releases, web-scraped financial documents, and social media drawn from the Bloomberg archives. And additionally, you may have seen the video of the woman in a black turtleneck who says you can't trust your eyes. It's an AI-generated deepfake. The video also tells on itself. A menu in the top left helpfully informs you that the video contains AI-generated content. There's a timestamp too. It was released on Tuesday by technology company TruePic and production studio Revel.ai to promote the idea of a relatively new transparency standard for digitally created content. Why do we care? Wanted to end the week with some big thoughts here. Chris Messina and Brian McCullough at the Tech Meme Ride Home have offered a theory of varietals of AI. Like wine and the choice of grape, AI and the choice of model will produce different outcomes. I like this concept because it extends nicely to the sommelier. Much like a sommelier can match a customer to the wine that fits their palate, a solution provider can be the matcher for a customer to the AI model that fits their needs. Bloomberg GPT is an example of how these models become specific for an industry. which is good for a diversity of ecosystems and options for service providers. And I wanted to highlight the technology that may be part of the authentication of digitally created content, because trust will be a crucial element in their use. Thanks for watching this week in the Business of Tech. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSP Radio. It's our give what you want model, where you set the value of what you think the content is worth. If you like this show, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary podcast, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers, with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue subscribe button. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all of them, and I look forward to talking to you next time.